Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, I'm seeing 55 participants with us. I know that that number will grow as we go along. Again, welcome everybody. I'm Brent Christensen with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. It is our honor and pleasure and to bring these calls to you every day. We're starting off great today. This is a call that was rescheduled from Monday when Zoom let us down. It's the only time it's let us down. And so we're back with the program that we were scheduled for Monday. So let me start us off with just a couple of housekeeping items, and then we'll turn it over to our team here that's going to lead us through the call. As always, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us at GSO Chamber. That's at GSO Chamber for the latest information. We continue to send out our daily email to members with a recording of the call, any relevant links, a summary of what we talk about here so that everybody gets the ability to listen in and learn everything that we've learned here. If you're not a member and you're on this call, welcome. We're glad you're here. All links to the resources and all the recordings are being housed on our website at greensboro.org/COVID-19. And then finally, one of the things we keep harping on these calls, and I appreciate y'all listening to me harp on it. We're going to continue to harp on it on social media and everywhere we can. We need to be responding to our census forms. Today is Census Day. April 1 is Census Day. So by now, hopefully everybody would have gotten something in the mail. Of course, with COVID-19 going on, it's going to be awfully difficult for folks to come to your house. And so now is the perfect time to go ahead and go online. It's very easy with that form that they sent you in the mail to go online and fill out your census form. It's going to mean an awful lot for Guilford County and for North Carolina. We continue to trail the national average in terms of response rates. We got an update from that today. And so it's more important than ever that people go online and fill out their census forms. Please do that. And so today, I'm going to be, for the most part, a listener on this call. Again, we were planning on doing this call on Monday. I was going to be on another call with the North Carolina Chamber, and so I wasn't going to be able to join everybody. But alas, the technical difficulties meant we couldn't have that call. But planning to step in and do that call is Deborah Hooper, who is our Chief Operating Officer at the Greensboro Chamber. And so I am going to turn it over to Deborah and let her lead the call and lead our guests. And then I'll be on at the end to close us out. But Deborah, go ahead and take it away from here, if you would. Deborah, you with us? Uh-oh. Did we lose Deborah? There she is. There you are, Deborah.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Okay.
We can. We got you. Excellent.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And I am so glad we were able to reschedule this topic and our two speakers so quickly this week after what happened on Monday. There is a lot of interest in the Greensboro Virus Relief Fund, and we want to make sure we get the word out and have everybody learn as much as possible about how they can contribute and also how they can apply for funds and receive them. I do have the privilege and honor of serving on the Greensboro Virus Relief Task Force, and I do appreciate being asked to help represent our business community. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. Joining us today, as Brent said, are two of Greensboro's key leaders, Michele Gathers-Clark with the United Way of Greater Greensboro and Walker Sanders with the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro. I cannot think of two more highly qualified leaders to be leading our community, especially with this particular relief effort. They have experience, their teams have experience at both organizations. And in fact, I was reminded today that they led the East Greensboro Tornado Relief Fund 2 years ago. So a lot of experience with these types of relief fund efforts. Michele Gathers-Clark, I'm just gonna share a little short bio with everybody. She does serve as the president and CEO of United Way of Greater Greensboro. She has a diverse background in financial services, risk management, operations, consulting, and accounting. The United Way team is focused on collaborative solutions that address the root causes of generational poverty, with the goal to end poverty in Greater Greensboro. So Michele, welcome. And Walker Sanders serves as president of the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro. He has a diverse background in financial planning and management, philanthropy, and community engagement. The Community Foundation team is focused on promoting philanthropy by addressing emerging community issues like this and working to strengthen our community for present and future generations. So welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us. So here's how we're going to approach today's conversation. First, we're going to have Walker talk about the fund and the donation side of the fund, and then we're going to ask Michele to fill us in on the granting side of the fund and how that works. Does that sound good to the two of you?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Sounds good, Deborah. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Walker, let's get started with you. Tell us about the Greensboro Virus Relief Fund, how this idea came about, and just what the goal is, and just give us some information about that.
Sure, I'm happy to, and let me begin first reiterating what so many people are saying, and just it can't be said enough to thank you and Brent and your whole team over at the Chamber of Commerce for the leadership y'all are providing, and with not only providing these calls but the other calls that you're facilitating. It's really been extraordinary, and also the work that you're doing with a lot of our local employers as they've all been able to pivot and adjust to help address the equipment needs, and being a manufacturing community, will position us well going forward. So I really want to give you huge accolades for the leadership that the Chamber's playing. And I would say too, in talking about the relief fund, something that Greensboro has done well historically, even going all the way back to 2001 when we had the 9/11 tragedy. The Community Foundation and United Way have always come together to make sure that there's a very consistent, coordinated response, and whether contributions are made to the United Way or to the Community Foundation, we're always joined at the hip, our two staffs, making sure that we can get resources back out to the community as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And we've been able to learn over the years, and most recently learned a lot from the tornado. So that's really served as a great backdrop for how we've been able to adapt to this. And Michele will get more into that. But this is such a different situation than what we've ever faced before. And in the past, we've dealt with a crisis that you kind of knew what you were dealing with. Whether it was a tornado or a hurricane, you knew the part of town that it was affecting. You knew the people that it was affecting. You knew exactly what to do and what resources you need to call upon to address that. And it was easier to do a very coordinated type of response. In this situation, you're dealing with something that no one knows who's impacted. Many of us on this phone call could be impacted, and things that we don't know. And it's so there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of emotion tied up into this. And one thing I think it's great to see is that I've never been prouder of being a resident of Greensboro than I had been through this process, because everyone has come together, put everything aside, and really done everything they can to make this work. So the focus of this call will be really looking at the general fund, but I wanted to kind of lift up and celebrate a lot of the other efforts that are also going on. I know the Arts Greensboro has led an effort to provide some support to local artists. There are a number of efforts going to try to help restaurants and bars in town in terms of not just the takeouts, but some GoFundMe pages for waiters and waitresses and bartenders to help those that have lost that income directly. There's a effort that the Guilford Education Alliance has been leading in partnership with the Guilford County Schools to help put laptops in children's hands that did not have one and were not unable to remote learn. These were some of the most highly impacted children in our schools, that ranging from the 2,100 homeless students that are in our Guilford County schools to those low-income families that had no other access to devices for remote learning. And there's been, just recently I got off a call with United Healthcare, who is bringing together the 8 or 9 major organizations that are getting food out into the community and coordinating it rather than providing meals for all the employees that are now remote working. They'll be providing up to 1,500 meals a day, Monday through Friday, that these organizations will coordinate and getting out there. So it's just extraordinary, the number of things that are going on in this community to address this effort. And that goes even more to say when what you think of the corporations and individuals and foundations that are supporting the general fund. So in addition to all these things that are happening, there have been a number of contributions. We're working closely with our major corporations primarily. We're still waiting to hear from a few of those corporations. I just got off the phone 5 minutes ago with Derek Ellington of Bank of America. I'm pleased to say they've just come in to make a major gift of $100,000 to this fund. That takes the total of this fund up close to about $750,000, $800,000. It's changing daily. Contributions are coming into both the United Way and to the Community Foundation to address this. And it's inspiring to see the number of folks that are contributing to it. I want to commend the United Way making a huge grant of $500,000 to this. Was a great leadership gift to send an example to some of our other corporate and foundation funders that this is a time to really dig deep and make sure that our community can address these issues. And the focus will be, what are the gaps that we need to fill? There's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about the federal stimulus and the Small Business Association loans. And so we need to make sure what we're doing here locally will be to fill those gaps and to provide the most efficient way for nonprofits to get access to the resources to distribute those funds as much as they can. Our Guilford Nonprofit Consortium will be sending out lots of information to all the nonprofits, informing them about how to access the Small Business Administration loans as well as the stimulus funds. The Chamber did a great call, I think, a week or two ago of education about how to go through that process. It's different from nonprofits because this is the first time they've been involved in getting access to those funds, which will play an important role for their ongoing sustainability this fall, as many of them have lost their ability to hold their fundraisers, and it's a busy fundraising season, as many of you all know, this time of year. So the fundraising continues. Encourage those that are interested to either visit the Community Foundation's website or the United Way, or you can send a check, and we're encouraging those contributions. We're going to work with the paper and some outdoor advertising to get the word out for others. To any size contribution is welcome, and all contributions will be used directly towards this relief.
Okay, so Walker, some great information not only about the Greensboro Virus Relief Fund, but also some other efforts to help in our community that are underway right now as well. So having raised about $800,000 so far, is there a particular goal for the Greensboro Virus Relief Fund, or is it kind of an open-ended goal at this point?
It's open-ended at this point. I mean, obviously, we know we need a minimum of $1 million or more to address some of this. Michele will get into that as we're looking at the grant applications that are coming in now. We'll be able to get our hands around that in more detail. I know the amounts that other communities are raised, and we'll as those requests come in, we may be making additional calls to folks to go give more.
Okay. I know sometimes there are matching gifts that come in. Have we had any of those come in so far?
Not technically, although we've used all those in the conversations that we're having with corporations. They'll say, can my gift be matched? And the nice thing we have here is the Community Foundation is given $100,000, the United Way is given $500,000, and those are easy matching dollars. And the other corporations that want to try to leverage that in addition will use that to call those that are still sitting on the fence.
Okay. Well, that's great. And we're going to make sure we communicate with everyone the different ways that people can make donations, and we will include that information, obviously, in our post communication after the call. So let's transition over to Michele and talk about how the fund works on the grant side. So Michele, tell us about the priority areas for grant applications. What are the needs that we are looking at? Do we have Michele?
Thank you. The needs we are tracking in two ways. One of them is through the North Carolina 211 network, which is the ability to call and get referrals and state your need based upon your locale. So I have some information that we leverage on who's calling and what their stated needs are. And then as business leaders in the community, we have a set of priorities that we have set aside. So I'm going to start with what the community is telling us. The community is telling us through their calls to 211 have doubled in the last 20 days. And they have really skyrocketed when it comes to housing and shelter. And very specifically, people need rent assistance. And I think we can all appreciate today is April 1st, and often when you are renting, your rent is due now. So we have seen more than a 50% increase there. And then we know that people are concerned about food and utilities as fast followers there. And we are meeting their needs by sending them to all of the food locations, utilities. We know that our utility companies have quote unquote stopped shutoffs, but people's bills are accumulating. So that's what the community is telling us. And then we set aside 6 priority areas that the fund is going to pay close attention to. And as you might imagine, housing is one of them, which is where the housing assistance and utilities come in. The other is food insecurity. So it's not just feeding kids their lunch and breakfast from the school system, but it's all of the things that happen outside of those hours, as well as our seniors who are homebound and our children who are not school age and family members who are not school age. So food insecurity. And then we know that there are children whose education has been disrupted for a host of different reasons. And some parents cannot necessarily act as the homeschool model, in the homeschool model. So we know we need to help where there's educational disruption from our early Head Start through post-secondary, because college students are struggling also. And then we know that there are employment reductions. So people have reduced hours, been laid off, and been furloughed, and are going to various organizations for assistance. And then we know that people need medical access, be it transportation, paying their co-pays, or just getting access. And last and certainly not least is we know that there are business disruptions. So we know our small business owners are in need of some resources. So we're really trying to think about this holistically, and those are the 6 priorities.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing those, Michele. Goodness, there are some significant needs, obviously, and high priority areas that we have to address. So who is considered eligible for the grants through the Greensboro Virus Relief Fund?
So eligibility for a grant is based upon express and quantified need. You have to be a 501c3 in order to receive a grant. So we know that there are organizations standing in the gap for people who need rent assistance, and so they are coming to apply for the grant, and then we'll help private citizens. The same goes true for medical access and all other things. You must be a 501c3.
Okay, so that really brings us to the task force. Can you talk a little bit about how you pulled the task force together and some of the organizations that are represented around these priority areas?
Yes. So based upon those priority areas, we pulled together 18 community leaders representing these 6 areas. So there are people who represent the community at large, people representing food insecurity. So for example, someone from Guilford County Department of Social Services who runs the food and nutrition program, so that there's a direct linkage to some of the resources that are already available, and how can we fill the gap with the $800,000 we have so far. Another example might be we have someone from Guilford Educational Alliance, so that we can understand what are the gaps that exist outside of getting people a computer and a laptop. What else are the issues that families and children are facing? So we have someone there. We have someone from the Greensboro Housing Coalition to help us understand what is going on the ground related, whether it be landlords, homeowners, or renters, to understand that. Piedmont Business Capital is also working with us. They stand in the gap often to help small businesses fill financial needs and make loans. How is it that we can work together? So it's really a cross-section of our community collaborating on this.
That's excellent. So if I'm a 501c3 organization, where can I find the application to apply for one of these grants?
Yeah, the application is on the United Way website, and we are unitedwaygso.org, and the application is on our website. To apply, every Monday at 1 o'clock is a deadline for consideration that week. So this Monday at 1 o'clock was a cutoff. We received 19 applications, and they will be considered for funding tomorrow afternoon when the task force has its first grant making session.
Michele, you are so right, because while we were on the call, I got a communication from Frank McCain at United Way about that process for the task force. So we'll be getting started with our review work immediately. So
that's exactly right.
Yes. So is there like you said, by 1 o'clock each Monday, how long will this go?
This will go, we do not have a defined set of time, but what we do know is for as long as we have resources to give out, we will be meeting. Okay. So it's important for, as Walk already stated, we've got to get out there and impress upon people that if you can give, please give.
Okay. So when someone is applying for one of these grants, is there a maximum amount that they can apply for?
We have not set mins and maximums. We really want to understand the express need. We do know that there is more need than funds that we have available, but it is only when we fully know the need that we can really be helpful. So we are not setting, we're trying to not complicate this. Okay. And maybe there's collaborations that can happen if we can't meet the need through the virus fund, but there might be other sources of resources.
All right. So let's say I'm a 501c3. I have submitted my application. How long would I expect to wait to learn if I am going to receive one of these grants, and then actually receive, if approved, receive the grant funds?
Our goal is that if you meet the deadline on Monday, whenever you submit, you will receive a confirmation that we have received your grant. So I think that's the first thing, that your grant request, we have received it.
Okay.
Monday is the cutoff. Thursday, it is reviewed. By end of business on Thursday, we would have known who is going to get awarded. Our goal is to send out award notification on Fridays, and as soon as we get the agreement back that signed, we're going to cut the check within 24 hours of receiving a signed agreement back. So it really is important that it's a coordinated effort, and that grant recipients sign the agreement letter, get it back to us. Somebody is in the United Way office every day. You can email it, you can fax it, you can run it by, and we will, our goal is to cut a check within 24 hours because we know that the need is real.
Absolutely. Well, this is definitely a rapid response process that you've set up. So
Yes.
thank you for that. Well, normally there's also some accountability with any grant process. So is there a follow-up grant report that has to be completed by the 501c3s and other organizations that might receive these grants? And if so, when would that be due?
Yes. So there is a grant report that is due. I think systems of accountability and transparency are really important. So it's not only that you receive the grant, but how are the funds expended? How are the funds expended? And then over what period of time were the funds used? Our reality is sometimes all of the money won't be used that first week. It'll be used over a period of time. So we're just going to do a monthly check-in to see where people are, to just say, send us at the end of every month where you are in the expenditures, and keep sending us a report until you've expended all of the money. It is a very simple process. We just want, who did you serve? How many people did you serve? And what happened as a result of serving people? Did you keep them from getting evicted, or did you keep their lights on? Were children better able to learn, etc.? And then we want to know, tell us how meaningful this was to families. Are there any testimonials? Are there any examples that we can hold up to the community to say the funds were used wisely? So that is what we are expecting on the back end.
That's great. And I'm looking to see if anyone wants to put a question in our chat room for Michele or Walker or both. Please do so now. I would, while everyone has a chance to do that, I am going to ask you a little bit about the East Greensboro Tornado Relief Fund. Like, what are some really important takeaways from that particular fund effort that you're applying to this particular one?
We learned a lot about structure, we learned a lot about communication, and we learned a lot about speed of decision. And so we have incorporated all of those things into the process. And it's really about being available for technical assistance, for listening to the community. So all of those things have been applied, and making sure that it's an open and transparent process. Because often people will say, I did not know. And so this forum, so I too thank the Chamber of Commerce for this forum. The newspaper has picked up that there's a relief fund. We're trying really hard, and anybody who is on this phone, I would just ask that you pass along the information. So transparency is very important when you're using philanthropy dollars to give to people in need.
Absolutely. Walker, anything that you want to add to this part of the conversation?
And especially to the nonprofits on the phone, is to there's also a resource that they can go online, the Guilford Nonprofit Consortium, and we know that there's a lot of resources that each nonprofit has that they may be able to help each other. And so there's a portal that's just been created. I believe it's going live. If not today, it'll go live tomorrow, for all the nonprofits in the community, if they have issues or needs, to kind of enter those on that portal that will be reviewed and passed along to the grant making committee, but also to be able to enter in their resources that they have that others could use. There may be a van that's available for someone to use for food distribution. We think kind of connecting those nonprofits to allow them to leverage their existing resources will also be an important aspect of trying to coordinate this very complicated type of response efforts that we're going to need to do.
Okay, and I'm seeing a request that we share the links that we have mentioned today in the chat room, and we certainly will in the post communication. We will definitely make sure that we do that. Here's a question. If the eligibility requirement is to be a 501c3, how would the funding area for small business disruption be served?
So I think there are a couple of things that happen there. Often a small business is also a family, and there are ways for families to stand in line to get assistance. So for example, if that small business owner is also renting and they go to one of the organizations that are quote unquote helping with rental assistance, they can help there. There is also potentially some work going on for not capitalizing businesses per se, but maybe there's some business training and development that could happen. So it really depends. It's not to go to, this fund cannot go to revenue producing.
Okay.
Deborah, I would like
but
to add,
it can.
I would add in for those small businesses that are looking for support, starting Friday, that every one of the small businesses needs to contact their local banker, and any banker that is an FDIC approved lender will be deputized to authorize stimulus funding to those small businesses, and they need to contact that banker and be able to go on quickly and request funding for payroll assistance and facilities and rent assistance over the next 2.5 months. That's part of the stimulus package. It's specifically geared to the small businesses with 500 or less employees, and encourage those small businesses that did not see the Chamber's webinar or had this conversation to go back. That was an extremely informative webinar talking about the process of doing that. And so that's the first place that we're going to be encouraging all these small businesses to go to. And that small businesses also include nonprofits. And so the nonprofits need to also take advantage of this stimulus to help give some relief to their operations during this time.
That's great information from both of you. And Walker, thanks also for reminding us to talk about those additional resources that are available to small businesses with fewer than 500 employees. I know Brent's going to include some information in his closing remarks today about a couple of our calls this week that'll be coming up to continue to help address small business relief available to them. And so we will make certain that we do continue to promote those resources through these daily calls as well as through our website also. So thank you for that. Let me just look and see if we have any additional questions. I've seen a lot of the links that were requested placed in the chat room, and also I know that we'll include those in our post-call communication. I do have a question. Can the organization have a fiscal sponsor to receive funding?
Michele, we can work with those organizations on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, we really have to be careful with a blanket statement on that.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times the community foundation can serve, and the United Way can as well, as a physical agent for some groups if it's community-based. So we can certainly look at those, but it needs to be judged on a case-by-case basis. And I think initially we'll be really focused on just the nonprofit organizations.
Should we just encourage them to go ahead and apply so that we can look at those on a case-by-case basis?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's our recommendation is for anyone who wants to be considered to go ahead and apply, and those will be looked at case by case. All right.
Deborah, it's important just to make a note that does being a physical agent applies to a group. It does not apply to individuals, and so so individuals.
Okay, thank you.
It should be a group that's applying, that's doing community-based work that may not have a formal 501c3, but perhaps we can connect them to a formal 501c3 or serve as a temporary physical agent for that group, depending on what that activity is. But it's not intended. The funds for this will not be intended going directly to individuals. It's going to the nonprofits that are on the front lines working directly with those families.
But thank you for that clarification, Walker. That's very helpful.
Can I offer a clarification, Deborah?
Absolutely.
So on the back end reporting, we are going to make that a 6 months from the date of the grant, that the grant is issued, that we would like reporting. By then, we figure that all of the grant dollars will be expended. So 6 months, we want to make sure that it's easy. So 6 months after the grant is issued, reporting will be required for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Very helpful.
You're welcome.
All right. Does anyone else have questions that they would like to have answered by Michele or Walker? All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for your leadership, for undertaking this amazing relief effort for our community, and for your teams as well, and all the hard work that they're putting into this to make sure that we address the needs in our community. So thank you both. And Brent, with that, I'm going to toss it back over to you.
Deborah, thank you. I appreciate you facilitating that this afternoon. Great discussion. Walker and Michele, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. You know, you all are putting boots on the ground and money on the street very quickly. That is very appreciative in the way you're doing it by not making it conform to a bunch of different rules and that sort of thing. I really applaud you for that. You've got a good group leading the way there to help you discern where the greatest need is and get those dollars out there. And so thanks for building that airplane while you're flying it, as one would say. And I know the community is going to really appreciate it now. They appreciate it now, and will appreciate it probably even more 6 months from now. So thank you for that. Now, Walker mentioned a number of things talking about the SBA and all of the money that is being put out there for COVID relief. So tomorrow, we're going to go back to the CARES Act and back to the SBA programming. We're going to have two bankers with us tomorrow, Derek Ellington with Bank of America and Adam Curry with First Bank. They are both going to join us and talk about the rules and regulation. I think Treasury is just starting to get those out to them. They're going to talk to both business and as Walker said, nonprofits. For the first time, nonprofits are being included in these SBA funds. If you're a 501c3 or a 501c19, these funds, you will be eligible for these funds. So you won't want to miss the opportunity to hear from the bankers who are preparing on Friday to start getting this money out into the community. So make sure that you join us Thursday, and then Friday, on a bigger picture level, we will have a representative from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce who is very much involved in helping build those programs, again, building the airplane while we're flying it. And so they'll be here to give a kind of an overall 30,000-foot view of where we stand right now with relief programming and what we might see coming down the pike in the future. So you won't want to miss Thursday and Friday. We'll wrap up this week with some really good hands-on advice and instruction in how to get your hands on some of these relief funds, how to keep your business going and functioning with the help of these relief funds going forward. So don't miss that. We'll see everybody again tomorrow at 3 and then Friday at 3. Two real exciting topics. But for now, again, thank you to Walker. Thank you to Michele. Thank you to Deborah for making this happen. Thank you all for joining us. Fill out your census form. Give blood if you can. Do everything that you can to help out in this time of need. We'll talk to everybody again tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And until then, we'll stand adjourned. Thanks for being with us.